Meet Dan Claps, the CEO who refuses to watch his own content. While building a franchise empire across 30 states, Dan discovered something most podcasters get wrong. Chasing podcast revenue is a trap. Instead, his approach to podcasting is interviewing people he wants to learn from and automating everything else. He's converted 10% of his franchisees without spending a dime on ads. In this episode, Dan reveals why friction is your biggest enemy, how he went from terrible Zoom recordings to Jordan Belfort's show, and the exact system that lets him record an episode and never think about it again.
Welcome to the Podcasting Secrets Show, where successful creators share their best stories, secrets, and strategies. I'm your host, Nathan Gwilliam.
Hello, incurable creators, and welcome to this episode of the Podcasting Secrets Show. Today, I'm joined by Dan Claps. Dan is the CEO of Voda Cleaning and Restoration, a seasoned franchise consultant and the host of the Home Services Playbook podcast. With years of hands-on experience in scaling home businesses and building franchise models, Dan shares actionable insights and strategies to help entrepreneurs grow their operations, adopt new technologies, and navigate industry-specific challenges. Through his podcast, he empowers business owners to turn practical advice into measurable results, combining expertise, storytelling, and real-world lessons to guide listeners towards success. Thanks so much for being here, Dan.
Thanks, Nathan. I'm excited to chat with you.
Can you start off by sharing with us something that most people don't know about you?
Oh, wow. Something most people don't know about me. I would say, so I put out a tremendous amount of content in the home services industry, in the franchise industry, on LinkedIn, Instagram, podcasts, etc. And I actually don't watch any of it. I am like a actor that doesn't watch themselves in film. I don't like when I watch myself. I don't like it. And so someone a long time ago gave me the advice, just post it. It's getting good results. So it's not for me, it's for others. So I don't watch my own or listen to my own content.
Yeah. And not only does that help you feel better, but it saves you a lot of time in the process.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be a little bit weird if, my fiance walked in our house and I had, my podcast up on the TV anyway, right? Listening to myself. But I just stay away from listening because then I keep putting out the content.
Can you tell us a little bit about your career and your journey creating Voda Cleaning and Restoration?
Sure. Yeah. So always been an entrepreneur. I had a business when I got into college. I started a staffing and recruiting business. In my early 20s, I got into the franchise industry back in the early in 2014. Was a franchisee and then eventually started a lead generation company in the franchise space. Sold that business to private equity in 2022 and acquired a little business out of Northern Virginia in the cleaning and restoration space. Started franchising the company around the country, and we're currently in about 30 states, 240 markets all around the nation.
So with the success you've had in business, you're probably making enough money already. Why did you choose to podcast? And what are some of the greatest benefits that you received from podcasting?
Yeah, it's a great question. I never really looked at doing podcasts from a monetary perspective, as in, I do a podcast and I make money directly. But there's two reasons I started doing podcasts. My other podcast, the I Fired My Boss podcast, I started actually in 2021 and we're up to 160 episodes. It was all selfish at first. I just wanted to interview people and learn from them. And a good excuse to get on a call would be to do a podcast. And so I would reach out to people I wanted to learn from in different areas of business and get to interview them and learn. Obviously, I then took that and started putting out the podcasts. But as I started to go further along, I realized that there were a lot of times where I was having a great phone call or a great conversation. We might as well record it, might as well turn it into a podcast and share it with others. So it kind of snowballed from there. But now looking back, podcasting has led me to finding great teammates, acquisitions, franchise owners. I can go on and on of the tremendous amount of value that doing podcasts and other content has. Again, not necessarily I did a podcast and made X number of dollars, but I can see a pretty intense relationship between the podcasting and my business's growth.
Yeah. Can you tell us about your journey to become a podcaster?
Yeah. Well, going back to what I said earlier about not liking my own, content, years and years ago, I hired a LinkedIn consultant to help me get out of my comfort zone and put video content on LinkedIn. And what's really interesting is one of the first things he did with me after, a day of talking or, a couple hours of talking is he said, let's take your phone. And we did a selfie video and recorded something. And then he took my phone and he posted it on LinkedIn. And I said, what are you doing? And he said, just leave it. Don't look at it. Leave it alone. We'll come back to it tomorrow. So I listened to him. I logged out of LinkedIn and didn't look at it. The next day it had, 50 hits or something. I still didn't like the video, but his point was once you put it out there, you'll see that people, appreciate it. So from there, I started to get more comfortable with doing content in general and started my podcast probably about 6 months later back then.
Nice. Take us through your journey. Take us through your first episode and launching your site and that initial creation process.
Like anything, I didn't try to make it perfect. At that time, I think we recorded it on Zoom, and I just clicked the button, and it was me and my co-founder of the podcast. And then over time, you invest in a microphone, you invest in, Riverside and things like that. But my first few episodes were pretty rough. I remember listening back, the sound quality was terrible. But to me, starting and getting the momentum was key. Fast forward, and there's a lot of times we're doing those podcasts in a very professional studio. Today, I'm just in calling in from a little cubicle here, but normally I'm in a pretty professional studio. But my point is, it went from, Zoom and a bad microphone to I've been on Jordan Belfort's podcast. I've been on many other, pretty large podcasts. But it just started by taking the first step.
Yeah. What are some of the greatest challenges that you've had through your podcasting journey, and how did you get through those?
It's a lot like anything else. You do it and you do it for a while. And you're like, where are the results? And I had to kind of push through. There's a period of time, I'm actually going through it right now, where it seems like my podcast cadence kind of slowed down. And it's just reminding yourself that, again, I'm not going to do a podcast and get a check in the mail for $10,000 or something, but it's the inverse relationship between I do podcasts and things happen. And so it's just, I think it's always, I still go through this today of reminding myself the importance of it's an hour of your time. You do it a couple times a week. It's worth it. How I overcame that though, Nathan, is I started doing podcasts in my house without the camera alone. So if there was a week where I didn't feel like managing to get a guest and all the other things that come with coordinating times, I would just in the morning after a workout, I was fired up. I didn't have any calls yet, let's say. I don't need to turn the camera on if I just came back from the gym. Just jump on there and talk 15 minutes about whatever topic. That's been a great way to overcome like the frequency, because at the end of the day, most people are listening to podcasts more than watching. And so if putting on the camera is a deterrent, do it in a way that could be easier. I've also even done podcasts with friends, business friends, where we were going to have a cigar, and he said, let's just set up some microphones and sit out here, and we might as well make it a podcast. And so, not taking yourself too seriously, not trying to be a perfectionist. Obviously, you want to put out quality content, but it's also about just, I keep saying it, but just getting your first step into it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be the same every time. You can definitely flow with it where you're at. What have been some of the greatest strategies you've used to help you grow your reach and your following?
Attending other podcasts. That's the number one way. If I join your podcast, there's, what's called the network effect. Some people may be attracted to what I have to say and they end up, subscribing to mine. If I do that every week with different podcasts and different audiences, that's been how I've grown, the podcast up until now. Also, in my position as a CEO, I interact with lots of people. I'm often on calls with cohorts of people that are looking at investing in our franchise. And so I just realized if I have 15 people listening to me talk at the end of the call, say, by the way, here's my podcast. So I kind of just promote it throughout a lot of my different interactions, as well as at networking events, do the same thing.
Yeah. Do you do paid advertising? Do you do SEO? Do you do any of the other strategies?
We don't do a lot of paid advertising on the podcast. Mostly just what I just mentioned, but it's probably something we should consider doing.
Yeah. Okay, how about monetization? You've talked about the growth that you've been able to have in other areas of your business because of the podcast and connections that it's made and such. Do you have a plan for monetizing? Do you have a plan for at some point, adding some new revenue streams?
You know, we've had sponsorships on the podcast before, and that's worked out pretty well. It's pretty rewarding if someone pays you several $1,000s a month, and all you have to do is talk about their
Yeah.
to do that. Um, right now, no, only because I'm a big fan as an entrepreneur of the saying, if you try to chase two rabbits, you won't catch either of them. I'm laser focused on what I'm doing at my franchise company. But it doesn't really matter because I know probably 10% of the franchisees we have, if not more, have bought partly because of the content they consume through my
Yeah.
podcast. And so that's a direct correlation for me.
Yeah, that is the best way to make money from a podcast. If you have an existing business and you're promoting what you already do, and it just helps you build that trust and credibility, become a thought leader, and drives what you already do. Today's episode of Podcasting Secrets is sponsored by PodUp, the ultimate podcasting platform. As podcasters, we're always looking for ways to simplify our workflows, grow our reach, and make more money. What if I told you that there's a tool that combines more than 35 essential podcasting features into one platform? That's exactly what PodUp offers, and it's transforming how we create, grow, monetize, publish, syndicate, and do so many other things with our podcasting content. From recording and editing to website building and audience engagement, PodUp covers virtually the entire podcasting process. What sets PodUp apart is its focus on growth and monetization. The platform includes AI-powered features that help you save time on tasks like creating short video clips and transcribing episodes. It also offers tools for guest management, content syndication, and email list building, all accessible from one centralized dashboard. For those of you looking to turn your podcast into a revenue stream, PodUp provides integrated monetization tools that help you market products, courses, and services directly to your audience. What's even better is that with PodUp, you don't have to waste time and money switching between multiple softwares to produce your podcast. With PodUp, you get all 35 modules within one fully integrated platform and for a fraction of the cost. If you're interested in simplifying your podcast workflow while expanding your reach and making some money while you're at it, check out podup.com. That's PODUP.com and get a free trial of the software. Now, back to the show. What is the biggest mistake you've made as a podcaster?
Um, I would say if I were to do things over again, I would invest in having some specific place that's easy to get to where the microphones are set up. I live in New York City. It's a little bit more challenging. My home doesn't really have a conducive place to have a podcast. I used to go to a studio that was a bit too far away. I think if walk in and do the podcast. When I was a kid, I played sports. I remember one of my coaches saying, if your cleats are in your bag in the closet on the top shelf, the chance of practicing is just that much lower. Whereas if they're right there by the door, ready to go, it's easy to get into practicing when, you're kind of set up for success.
Yeah.
So I would say setting up a safe space to do podcasts that's easy to just jump in there and get into it.
Yeah, I've set up just my office where I put a TV behind me. I just put up a logo. I've got my lights always here. My camera's just right here all the time. My microphone can come in and out to where when I have a recording, I can finish a meeting and in 5 minutes I can, be ready to go for the next recording. So yes, the easier you can make it, the greater the chances that you'll keep doing it. We were working with somebody who we've worked with a couple of people who were convinced they needed podcast recording studios. And yes, the background might be better. We haven't even found that the recording is that much better, or sometimes we've even seen that it's worse. But what you gain maybe in a little bit more professional environment, you lose in that you have to drive somewhere and you have to, it just takes so much more effort. There's so much more friction involved. those people just end up not recording their episodes, and it could be a big detriment. So you're right. Get rid of the friction. Make it as easy as you possibly can to record an episode. If you just have 20 minutes, you want to not have to drive somewhere and make an appointment, and you want to just turn on a camera and start recording. Dan, can you take us through your process of publishing an episode?
Yeah, it's a great question. If a lot of your listeners are busy CEOs or entrepreneurs, they got a lot going on. We were talking about friction. I think one of the best things I did in the podcast is I hired a part-time editor and a part-time podcast manager that posts all the episodes, makes all the captions and the thumbnails and gets it up there and looks at reports, right? So like a manager of the podcast and an editor. When I hired both of them part-time, which I'll talk about how in a second, I met with them both and I said, it's very easy. I want to record a podcast and then I want to get off the podcast. I never want to think about it again. I just want it to pop up online. My assistant will schedule it. I will come in a room. I'll do it 30 minutes and then I'll go back into running through walls, doing whatever I'm doing. That has been the most important thing because I don't know about you, but I don't want to edit a podcast and I definitely don't want to sit there and post it. So automating that's been key. How I did it, I just used a tool or a website called Upwork.com. You can find freelancers. They're set on a weekly project basis. There's a set fee for each episode and a set, kind of parameter. And so any week I put an episode out, they edit it, they post it. My card gets charged only on the weeks where I put out episodes. And it's been a very seamless, experience.
I love it. Yeah. Get rid of the friction in the process. However you choose to do that, make it as simple and easy as possible. And your chance of continuing to do your show consistently radically increases. So Dan, you're specifically using a podcast to grow a franchise business and grow a services business. What advice would you have for other entrepreneurs using a podcast to grow a services business or a franchise business?
Yeah, I think the best thing you can do is find a way to double or triple dip. And what I mean by that is when I mentioned if I was having a conversation with someone that I thought was useful, that I had to have anyway, I might as well record it and make it a podcast. That's what I would call it double dip, right? I'm getting two things out of the same time that I did. In my case, the podcast has two services or two objectives. One, I need to make content to communicate the vision and the mission and the core values of Voda to our franchise owners. And then I just take that and I share it with everyone else. And so prospective franchise owners get the same thing, but I had to do that anyway. And so I'm getting kind of two benefits out of one service.
Right. I love that. You're multitasking. That's one of the greatest advantages of a podcast, why people love consuming podcasts. They could be driving a car or exercising or, mowing the lawn and listening to a podcast at the same time. You're taking that multitasking to another level and double dipping, as you say.
Yeah.
Okay. What is your secret sauce for running a successful niche podcast?
My secret sauce for running a successful podcast: be genuinely interested in the people that you're interviewing. Get people on there that you're genuinely interested in. And that, if you have something to learn from them, chances are if you're in a niche, other people have something to learn from them as well. And so it's kind of funny, but I try to make the podcast for myself. Like I said in the beginning, it's a bit selfish. I want to learn. If that week I want to learn about how to do call center and home services better, I'll talk to someone about that. If I want to learn about pay-per-click advertising better, I'll talk to someone about that. And my general curiosity and interest, chances are the people that follow me should have similar, kind of thoughts. And so I think make the podcast for you, and the rest will kind of work itself out. People could tell you're passionate about it, and that'll also make it a little bit easier to do it, since again, you're learning when you do it. You're growing yourself and sharing it with others.
Yeah. You said that the greatest way you found to grow your show is to get on other shows. What advice do you have for other podcasters about how to get on those other related shows?
I've found that most podcasts, they have to have more episodes and more audiences, and they run out too. So just reach out, and you'd be surprised. You could reach out to some pretty famous podcasts too, and some charge, but a lot don't. Especially if you can get them on yours, if your audience is starting to grow. We have a campaign where we reach out to people with podcasts, ask them to join. I don't know if that's how we got connected originally, or if you with me, but there's automate that. Reach out to as many people as you can to join their podcasts.
Yeah, and then you get that cross promotion from those different audiences as well. You talked about one of the greatest benefits that you've received is these relationships with clients, partners, advocates, and such. What tips would you have for converting your podcast listeners or your podcast guests into those clients, partners, or advocates?
I would say one of the best things we do is we take the podcast episodes, we go into a program called Headliner. It creates little shorts. We post those onto Instagram and to Facebook and into LinkedIn. And now that the more I think about it, you asked me if we're doing paid media to promote our podcasts. No, but we're doing a lot to promote my social channels, to get people on my social channel, which then they're able to then see those reels pop up, which promotes the podcast. So I guess I am promoting the podcast through, paid media in that sense. But a lot of people, they don't want to go to the app and listen. They don't know if they want what you have. Those little reels that you can show on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube is a great way to get them hooked. And then they click the link and they go listen to a full episode.
Yeah, that's great advice. What's your favorite episode that you've published?
My favorite episode, in home services, there's a great visionary, kind of podcaster called Tommy Mello. I listened to probably every Tommy Mello episode, and I was fortunate to go on his podcast and him on mine. And so we recorded at the same time for both of our podcasts, but having that experience was by far my favorite experience. So basically getting to meet a mentor or an idol, if you will, as equals on a podcast was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that is pretty cool. The opportunity that the podcast gives you to open those doors. When I was a little kid, I was a big Dallas Cowboys fan, and the quarterback was Danny White. And not too long ago, I had Danny White as a guest on my show. It was really fun to meet the guy that I used to have his pajamas when I was a little kid,
Yeah, that's cool.
Where do you see your podcast and your personal brand, your business going over the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, it's interesting. Personal brand is tough, right? But if you grow an audience, it's a little bit easier. If you grow a big business, the more your business grows, the more credibility you have, the more people will naturally listen. And so, I just plan to keep doing what I'm doing, making a podcast I like, talking to people I want to learn from, putting out as quality content as I can. And I think the podcast will naturally grow as my business grows and I've got more to share. And my, kind of my net that I've cast gets wider and wider. I'm affecting a decent amount of people through Voda. We're servicing a lot of clients and a lot of employees and teams, and that's only going to grow. And then I think that will naturally help me grow the podcast as well.
Yeah, definitely. Dan, if this audience has enjoyed your interview like I have, and they want to learn more about you and your show and your services, what are the best ways for them to do that?
Connect with me on LinkedIn. It's just my home service one's a little bit smaller. I would go to the I Fired My Boss podcast. It's just I Fired My Boss podcast.com. Or on Apple, podcast. And then if they have an interest in franchising, it's myvodafranchise.com.
VODA, right? Perfect. Thank you so much, Dan, for the value you shared and for being with us today.
Thank you.
And here are my key takeaways from this episode. Number 1, prioritize building relationships and opportunities through podcasting, which supports sustained business growth. Number 2, make it a habit to create and share content with the goal of serving your audience. Number 3, recognize that the most valuable outcomes often happen behind the scenes, such as networking or unexpected business deals, rather than podcast downloads. Number 4, begin publishing content, even if it's not perfect. Progress is more important than initial production quality. Number 5, maintain consistency in your releases. Record solo episodes or brief updates to keep momentum strong. Number 6, treat your podcast as a launch pad for business connections, recruiting team members, and attracting acquisitions. Number 7, focus on delivering value and understanding your audience before aiming for monetization or direct revenue. Number 8, build authority and attract collaboration by maintaining a visible presence with regular posts and podcast episodes. Number 9, invest time in learning new technologies and improving your strategy to stay competitive in the industry. And finally, number 10, seek guidance from mentors or consultants who challenge your doubts and help you stay accountable to your goals. If you're looking for a great podcasting platform with more than 60 integrated tools to help you create, grow, and monetize your podcast, I recommend you check out a free trial of PodUp at podup.com. And you can also get a free 30-day trial of our podcast launch course. Thanks for joining us for this episode, and I wish you success as you turn your passion into profit through podcast monetization.